What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be showing you my budget Smiter build. Now, this build is by no means min-maxed and is pretty cheap to get, with the exception of Dracula's Grasp, which may take one of the lower high runes, as well as the Grief weapon, which will take a high rune to make, more or less, depending on your base. Depending on what you make it out of, could get very expensive, but it's not hard to get a cheap base and have it there for your Smiter. Once you have those two items, you're more than ready to destroy Uber Tristram. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So, to start off with the gear for this Smiter, and most of the pieces that are in this budget build aren't overly expensive. I would say most of the gear is between a pull to a maul range, with a couple of exceptions, which I will point out as we go through. But starting off, what we're going to do is, for the shield, for this budget build, is a Herald of Zakarum. It's a solid shield, it's got solid block rate, solid combat skills, paladin skills, so you get a lot bonus to smite, as well as holy shield. Plus you get a little bit of strength, vitality, and if you put a diamond in it, once you socket it, it goes to a 69 all resist, which is a solid amount, and this is where a large portion of our resists will be coming from in this build, just due to the fact that it being a budget build, not a lot of the pieces of gear on it do have a crazy amount of resist, but that is not a problem. Moving on to our boots, we want to use Gore Riders, a little bit faster run walk, which is nice, and there's Crushing Blow and Open Wounds. Unfortunately, Deadly Strike is not something that works with Smite. For those of you that don't know, Crushing Blow allows you to deal a percentage of the enemy's health as damage, and it does work with Smite. I believe for bosses and unique monsters, it's about 12.5% of their current life. So as their life goes down, you will be doing a little bit less damage with Crushing Blow. And Open Wounds just applies a bit of extra bleed, but as their health gets lower, you get closer to killing them, and your damage ends up being enough to just melt through them. Next up, for the amulet, I'm using a Seraph's Hymn. This isn't an overly expensive amulet. Honestly, the major benefit from this is the 2 to all skills. Obviously, for an upgraded version, you would use a Mara's or a High Lord's ideally. Cat's Eye could also be a good, even cheaper alternative if you don't have a Seraph's Hymn, and it's probably worth quite a little bit less. Up next for the rings, we do use a Ravenfrost, a little bit of Cold Res, as well as Dexterity, and the fact that you cannot be frozen is a big win. Also, for the other ring, we use a Dwarf Star. The life bonus is nice, Fire Absorb is nice, the magic damage reduction is also very, very nice. For our belt, we use a Thunder Gods, and honestly, the biggest benefit here, other than like the Fist of Heavens being struck, is the straight up stats, the strength, vitality, the lightning absorb, and the fact that it gives you extra lightning resist, makes you very, very tanky. For our helmet, we use Gilliam's Face. This is very easy to acquire. Mine does have a enhanced damage and ED jewel inside of it, but again, what this helmet does give us, and you do not need the jewel necessarily, but you will get the 35% Crushing Blow, which is huge. Again, unfortunately, we don't benefit from the Deadly Strike, and a little bit of extra strength bonus. But that combined with the crushing blow from this, we're already at 50%, which is a huge win. Going up next, and this will be one of the slightly more expensive items, but it is a very good smiter item, and that's the Grief Sword. Mine's in a crystal sword, which is ideally not what you want, purely because the repair cost can add up pretty quickly. However, in my case, the reason I went with a crystal sword for the Grief is because I got one very cheap. I think I paid a gold, maybe a vex for it, just for the fact that it's made into a crystal sword, which is already a lot lower than the value of the runes that go into it. That being said, the only real high value rune in here is low. Mal is a little bit up there, but not quite the high rune. So it's a very strong rune word, and it's very cheap to make for the most part, unless you go for some crazy like superior phase blade that has like increased attack speed and all that. But the benefits of this is the attack speed, the straight up flat damage, the fact that you ignore target's defense, and the prevent monster heal makes it very nice in case you die or like you have to go back or you have to go to town. All that makes it so the monsters don't get their health back once you hit them. Now, since we are not using an exile for this budget build, because exile can get very expensive, especially for like a very good base that has like 45 all resist and stuff like that, we do need Dracul's Grasp, and this is a mandatory for the build. They can be a little bit expensive. I believe they're worth somewhere between a gold to a vex as well. And the reason is lifesteal does not work with smite, and therefore we need life tap. So this gives us our chance to cast level 10 life tap, which means effectively as long as we're hitting the monster that's cursed with life tap, we're getting life back. And it also gives a little bit of extra open wounds, which again, added with our already open wounds, we're at 35%. It's an extra little bit of damage for us. And last but not least, for our armor, and this is a very cheap rune word to make, use Treachery, Shale Thul Lem. Lem is the highest rune in there, which is not a very high rune to begin with. But here's the reason why we use this is the 45% attack speed, very nice. The faster hit recovery, very nice, plus a little bit of cold resist. But the important thing to note is the 5% chance to cast level 15 Fade. And I believe at level 15 you get something like 70 all resist when it casts. And I'll show you guys later how you want to proc this before even like starting your Ubers. But that effectively lets you have like lower res and basically just go to cap and max with the Fade being procced. And it lasts, I believe, 5 minutes. So like once you proc it once, you'll definitely get hit enough times to like keep proccing it over and over as long as you're fighting. And this is kind of basically all the gear you really need. Moving on from this, the next step up I would recommend is on your offhand is getting a Call to Arms. Mine isn't very high rolled, but just having that extra life, like I go from 1.7k life to like 2.7, something like that, it's a significant increase, as well as a little bit of extra damage coming from the battle orders. And then in your offhand, just a Spirit for more all skills. And that's another benefit to this is High Lords will only give you 1-to-1 skill. This will make your buff slightly bit better by having 2-to-all skills. Again, Amara's would probably be more ideal, or a High Lords, but in lack of, there's the added benefit over High Lords to having a Call to Arms. For our charms, we of course have the Paladin Torch, and this is something that you can farm once you're able to do Ubers. You can do Ubers without this. It'll make it a bit harder for sure, but it's very doable. Again, the Annihilus, same thing. And the rest of our charms is just life increases, attack rating, max damage, a little bit of resist, life, and charms like this that are close to like 20 life and 10% resist are very good. I do have a Geeds, which isn't really necessary because you're guaranteed torches from Ubers anyway. But again, just like a little bit of life charms, run walk, defensive auras, lightning resist. This is very like typical gear. This isn't a min max build by any means necessary, and you are fine to clear Ubers with this build. So moving on to stats and skills. So starting off with the stats for strength, and you can play this once you have better gear as well as you're progressing with the gear, and you get better strength bonuses, better torches, better annihilises and stuff. You can use a token of absolution. The maximum strength you need is for the maximum item that you're using. A lot of this will depend if your treachery is made out of, like, for example, mine needs 158 strength. If you use higher tier armors, you might need more strength. So it all depends on what you really make out of it. I honestly wouldn't recommend going anything above a bone weave, whether it's for treachery, whether it's for fortitude. I wouldn't really go beyond that. That being said, what you will need a lot of strength for in the maximum version of this build will probably be for an exile. If you have a solid base for it, it will take a lot of strength, somewhere close to 200, I believe, for a vortex shield. And the other thing is, if you get a grief that's made out of a phase blade instead of a crystal sword, which is the ideal, you will need a little bit more dexterity. Besides that, you want to put everything into health. For skills, we're going to start off pretty simple. So Smite is something you definitely want to max out, and then you're going to put 1 point into charge, 1 point into Holy Bolt, 1 point into Blessed Hammer, which lets you use Holy Shield, and then you're going to max Holy Shield out. Moving on to offensive auras, again, you're going to put 1 point into Might, 1 point into Blessed Aim, 1 point into Concentration, and then you're going to max out Fanaticism, which is the aura that we use for this build, because it gives us attack rating, it gives us a lot of base damage, and most importantly, it gives us attack speed. 37% is already quite a significant amount, especially stacked with all the other percentages that we have. Now, keep in mind, Holy Shield benefits from Defiance, so in defensive orders, we're also going to max out Defiance, because we want the bonus defense to be as high as possible. And then beyond that, you don't really need anything else from here. What I choose to do is I put into sacrifice, and then I'm maxing out Zeal slowly as I level up. And the reason for that is because I want to be able, when I'm fighting not bosses, just like little enemies, Zeal helps clear it a little bit faster than Smite. Which, especially going through the mini Ubers, just swapping to Zeal instead of Smite will help you just clear those a little bit faster. And that's everything for the skills and the stats. So the last thing I want to show you guys is how to proc your Fade. So going to Hrogarth and then right out the main gate, you're going to see some mobs which you can quickly kill. And then you want to stand in these little fire pits because they don't really do a lot of damage, and they can help proc your Fade. And sometimes this will take a little bit of time. You only have 5% chance to proc it when getting hit. But you ideally don't want to start fighting in the Ubers, especially in like Lilith's domain, where she poisons the hell out of you, because you're going to have a bad time without having like the max resistances. It really depends. It could be on your first tick, it could be on your last tick. But once you have procced it, like I said before, it does last for 5 minutes. While you're fighting within the Ubers, it will undoubtedly get procced again. This is just probably one of the safest ways to get it triggered before you start doing the Ubers themselves. Sometimes it helps if the catapults do hit you. If not, then, well, such is life. There we go. It proc for us. You'll know by the fact that you're now like a little bit see-through, and your resistances are completely maxed out. You have even a little bit of overkill on the lightning resist, and now you're good to go and start fighting in the Ubers. That is going to be it for the budget Smiter build guide. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, my social media information will be in the video description below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.